This is the WorkPool demo video as part of the Google application verification process. We'll start here on the WorkPool homepage, where on our website homepage, as per Google's requirements, we have the privacy policy easily accessible, in our case here at the bottom of the page. And in our privacy policy, we do also note that we are in adherence to the Google API Services user data policy. So here that is also hyperlinked so that any users can go look at that if need be. So we'll have a look at the OAuth flow for any users in our software. We can have a look at the user profile, and here in their third-party credentials section, they can add a Google account. We will select our testing account. And accept to the scopes that WorkPool requests. So first is the mail.google.com scope and the userinfo.email scope, which we also request. We can also highlight our client ID here in the URL and continue. So here's the first reason why we need the userinfo.email scope, just to be able to identify the OAuth account being added. And we will get to why we need the mail.google.com scope. And then we can move on to the user mailbox. So they will want to add a downloading account. And here we can also select the OAuth account, as there could be multiple. So for the gmail.modify scope, this is the first time we will need that scope, where we request the Gmail labels. So in this scenario, we'll select WorkPool. And now WorkPool will begin polling this mailbox for emails, but for this specific label. So what I can do is send a test email to this mailbox. The email will reflect shortly here in Gmail, but this is the main reason why we need the full access mail.google.com scope. It's the only scope that allows us to use IMAP and POP via OAuth. And WorkPool polls the configured label using POP or IMAP and will also download the email into WorkPool using the same protocols. There are no other scopes which allow POP or IMAP access. So here, depending on the user configuration, once the email gets downloaded into WorkPool, it will either end up in the bin or archived, or it will stay in the label. That all depends on the user's Gmail settings. So this email now gets downloaded into WorkPool, as we can see here, test demo. And that is the extent to which we need the gmail.modify scope. We will also use it for sending in the future, but no adjustments will be needed to the scopes for that. Looking at the OAuth flow for WorkPool over here. So we will work with a middleman authentication server. So this is just because our clients each have their own servers. Each client, we don't have one centrally hosted server. Each client gets their own server. So we'll have this middleman, which is our authentication server, and everything will go through there. So this is our diagram. A user will link their account, and that request first hits our authentication server, which then makes the request to Google servers. In the browser, obviously, the user will have to agree to the scopes that we request, and the flow just takes place through the middleman going like this. Looking at an overall WorkPool breakdown, we will use the email that was pulled in here. So WorkPool is a workflow management tool where here we'll get an email in and we would have an entry folder. Just like in real life, you would have a filing cabinet with a bunch of folders. In WorkPool, you'll have an entry folder. So in our scenario, we have a Google entry folder and we'll just link it there. And we would want to create a task for this to keep track of it. So we'll create the task, and this is the test demo for Google verification. We'll assign it to ourselves. Given that it's a workflow management tool, we could assign it to any other resource that is in this particular WorkPool. In our scenario, we'll just assign to ourselves though. And we can give it a type and a classification as well, which isn't required. So you've got your priority as well and any other default attributes which could be used. So in our scenario, we'll just set the due date to whenever we want and a description. So once we save this, the email gets removed because we now have a task to keep track of that email. And here we can see our task list. We currently have 2 things to do. Here's the new one. And any emails that are applicable to this task get filed on it. And we can also add activities as we need to. So yeah, if another email comes in that is applicable to that task, we can say, okay, yeah, this one, and this one already has a task, so we know there's no extra task that needs to be created. If we unlink this though, we can yes, and there we can apply. If we go look in the directory now, this is where all the entry folders can be searched for. Here's our Google entry folder. We can see some extra details here. And in the tasks, we can see there's only one open task for Google currently. Could also look at the historic tasks and apply some date filters. In our scenario, though, there is only this one task registered for Google. And that is the extent of our application walkthrough and scope justification. Thank you.